Пробва за микрофона. Пробва за микрофона и техническа молба. Елата по-напред и да не стане на първите редове, не се стеснявайте. Вашите разходителства, Excellencies, скъпи гости, имам изключителното удоволствие да ви представя днес един не само помощник генералния секретар на НАТО Сорин Ducaru, но и един от най-уважаваните дипломати в НАТО. Той, докато служеше като постоянен представител на Румъния в Североатлантическия съвет, дори постигна позицията доайен на съвета, което е една от най-уважаваните позиции в НАТО. Тя е толкова важна, че е доайена на Североатлантическия съвет. Може да бъде човек, който практически да договори или избере следващия генерален секретар на НАТО. Преди това посланник Ducaru е бил на множество дипломатически позиции. Той беше постоянен представител в ООН в Нью Йорк, беше посланник в Вашингтон, както споменах, дълги години посланник в Брюксел. Има различни научни степени в румънски и международни университети и в момента отговаря за редно с всичко останало и за програмата партньорство Science for Peace, науката за мир. Иначе официалната му титла е Assistant Secretary General for Emergency Security Challenges. Тъй като сме напреднали доста с времето, не искам да отнемам повече от неговото време, това, което ще дискутираме с него. Само искам да ви кажа, че днешното събитие се предава едновременно по Google Plus на живо и по перископ на живо. За първ път днес правим този експеримент. И специално искам да благодаря за съдействието и съучастието на Румънската бизнес камера в България, която е тук сред нас, представена от своя председател, и който пък седи до румънския посланник, който е колега на господин Ducaru. И разбира се, много искам да приветствам тук и посланника на Аржентина, защото съм сигурен, че Аржентина обмисля вече членството си в НАТО или поне кандидатурата си за членство в НАТО. Тук беше и посолството на Пакистан, ако не се лъжа, но там НАТО има други цели и мисии. И много се радвам да видя след нас една огромна група от студенти и младежи, посолство на Индия, искам да поздравя също така. Искам тези прекрасни студенти, които са тук, те са именно тези, които най-много ще усвоят ползите от програмата Наука за мир. С тези няколко думи, моля ви да приветстваме нашия уважаван спикер, посланник Сорин Ducaru.
Thank you very much, Minister Pasi, Dr. Pasi. It is indeed a great pleasure to be back in Sofia, where I always feel like home, and it's not by chance, since I'm part of the region, and always love to spend not just the official time, but also some leisure time on the Bulgarian Black Sea coast, which I've done a couple of times until now. I'm extremely grateful for the invitation. I should say that I'm already for a long time one of those who have appreciated Dr. Pasi both in his academic but also political activity. And I remember when my own country, Romania and Bulgaria, were making the point of being NATO members. I used to be ambassador in Washington, and we did a lot of things in common with at that time aspiring nations, with our officials, our ministers. So it's person of attachment to the work of the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria, who has been extremely active in this context, both in the period where Bulgaria was aspiring for membership, but as it's proved today, also afterwards. Many thanks also to the Romanian Bulgarian Business Chamber for being supported the event, and I'm glad to salute Tony Corporazzo, with whom I spent many hours, hard-working hours, a long time ago in the foreign ministry. Today I'm here to address you not necessarily in my capacity as some diplomat from the region, but as a representative of NATO, the NATO Secretariat, on a subject that is, I think, extremely generous and challenging at the same time, about the rising global challenges in the modern world. And just to summarize the let's say content of my address, I would mention that, and this is linked with the subject matter that I'm dealing with in headquarters, emerging security challenges. So in order to capture the story, we're living in a world of emerging and re-emerging challenges that kind of blend together harmoniously in the current context. And let me be a bit more granular, let's say, more into details. In the year 2000, the Lisbon strategic concept of NATO was orientating the transformational process of the alliance. And as you know, NATO went through a number of stages of transformation, from the period of the bipolar world, the Cold War, to the period of the post-Cold War. In 2010, the focus was to adapt to this changing environment that would come rather from the non-conventional spheres. It was in this context that the division for emerging security challenges was created to address issues like cyber security, energy security, counterterrorism, to address the impact of new technologies, to have horizon scanning capability, we call it strategic analysis capability, that would help the alliance adapt to these emerging challenges. While, and you can look into that concept, acknowledging that threats to territorial integrity of states in Europe, types of conventional threats are less probable, and while actually promoting at the same time a strong cooperative security agenda. Actually, it is in the strategic concept of Lisbon that NATO endorsed two more key objectives along with collective defense. Collective defense was the original objective, the reason of being of NATO, that to assure security, territorial integrity of its members, of its territory. But in Lisbon, in the new strategic concept, the two new core tasks have been crisis management and also cooperative security, mainly through the partnership network, including the objective of developing a strategic partnership with Russia, which is stated in the strategic concept of 2010. So this is how we have been gearing and organizing ourselves to address the modern challenges and to respond to some of the key questions. And in all honesty, it's hard to put hierarchies, because the hierarchy of what would be the main threat today might not be exactly the same tomorrow. But I think it's fair to say that, for example, issues like terrorism were very much on the agenda. And the question was, what could be the different phenomena? What would be the way to address it, both in terms of causes and effects, and recognition that the two-track approach has to be taken, because in so many ways tourism has reached a level that its effects have to be addressed directly, and sometimes even with less military means. But how important it is to have a comprehensive approach and look into its causes, and not NATO as an organization alone, but in partnership with other organizations, with the UN, with the European Union, also in partnership with its network of partners. And this was one of the important questions, and one of the important mandates of this division. And it was through the Science for Peace and Security program that we developed a number of projects to address and to support the capacity building in partner nations that could be source or areas of transit of such tourist movements. And frankly, I think we have a number of good examples, but what we're missing is the scale of implementing such an approach, and in partnership with others. The issue of energy security has been addressed on many facets. One, the understanding of the mega trends in energy development. And by the way, NATO is not an energy organization per se. It doesn't decide policies in this field. But its role is actually in addressing the link between energy and security matters. So it has to do with understanding the strategic megatrends. It has to do with exchanging best practices in protecting essential energy infrastructure, and also a new dimension to develop the newest technologies that would reduce the consumption of energy, and also, I would say, the climatic footprint of energy when it comes to its military application, be it in exercises or in real operations. The aspect of non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction. This is not exactly a new challenge or emerging one. This is a challenge where there are new facets that have to be adopted in different periods of time. And this is why the NATO in the Emerging Security Challenges Division also hosts the so-called W&D Non-Proliferation Center, where we try to create a common stance of allied nations, and sometimes also in the dialogue and support of partners in supporting the international non-proliferation regime, in exchanging the best practices, the information, or actually in generating a platform of political and intellectual debate among allies and partners in support of the different regimes. Last time the W&D Center hosted an international conference, and it was an international conference of NATO on non-proliferation in Doha, so in the Gulf, with participants from countries from all continents and high representatives of UN and the European Union. And this was weeks before the NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty Review Conference in New York. Cyber. I mean, cyber has already emerged as potential security concern, and we see all the threats. But then every other month and every other year, we see new facets. So new versions of these threats that are emerging. And what we see today is actually a strong increase beyond that, the activity of cyber criminality, which is actually not NATO's objective of work. It has to do with Europol, Interpol. But this phenomenon in itself has also and can have security consequences, since a whole bunch of cyber criminal underground can put some of their knowledge, their malwares into the hands of those who would like to act to harm the rules of security of nations, the nation states, either to terrorists or in some cases to different organizations affiliated or not, even with state actors. So this cyber underground risks to become to receive cyber mercenary dimension, which would be worrisome. We see an increase in frequency, intensity, and sophistication of cyber attacks. They're focused, and again, beyond taking advantage in the criminal world, they're also focused on governments and on international organizations with the scope of generating disruption in the functioning of their systems and in the functioning of the organization themselves, or with the scope of getting access to sensitive data, data exploitation, as we call it, or exfiltration or espionage. And frankly, there is strong concern of the potential of these things to become also generating some physical destructions. And scenarios could be well imagined where through access of computer systems, energy infrastructures from PowerPoint or transportation routes, and we have few examples. For example, when an oil pipeline in Turkey had exploded due to penetration on its surveillance, electronic surveillance system. But this was a relatively small-scale example compared to what could happen in more, I would say, worrisome scenarios. So we also see the, and then we are worried about the potential link between cyber, the nexus between cyber and terrorism, which could generate nightmare scenarios. There's also concern about the use of new technologies like 3D printing. With 3D printing nowadays, one can print lethal weapons. Some of them that are not built from, let's say, metallic materials that could be easily scanned by existing technology, but with composite materials. The role of UAVs and the kind of concern that having some lethal device brought to a mini UAV on the window, maybe a UAV that could be brought on the shelf. Of course, so it's a big spectrum of what one would call emerging, challenging in this world. Now, what is important to know that especially since 2014, and actually since the illegal annexation of Crimea by Russia, and also the enhanced military activities and some of the destabilizing activities in the eastern part at the frontier of Ukraine, some rhetoric and some plans that lead into the build of military infrastructure, be it in at the eastern border of Ukraine, or be it in Crimea. All these aspects have been generating a fresh look, a fresh concern on the issue of, and then let's say, I would say, a re-emphasis of the issue of collective defense. So that's why I'm saying we've been focusing since 2010 on the issue of the emerging threats, while assuming that through partnership, through cooperative security, let's say, collective and territorial integrity issues would not be an issue anymore in modern 21st century Europe. While what happened, a breach of territorial integrity of one state, as recognized by the UN, by the Helsinki Final Act, and international law and international commitments, with all the other aspects that I mentioned, have brought back into the front line the aspect and the focus to have, I would say, at least an equal focus on all three core tasks: collective defense, cooperative security, crisis management. And somehow what we see is that the emerging threats with the re-emerging one that somehow are coming from the past, when we see some heavy military presence and confrontation, they're blending. There's another, and when I say this, I want to introduce into the discussion the concept of hybrid warfare, which is not, by the way, necessarily a new concept. Hybrid warfare has been studied and has been addressed also in the past. But there are elements of the modern hybrid warfare that are worth to be taken into consideration. And they are the kind of scale. They have to do with the introduction of some modern dimension, like the use of cyber in hybrid warfare, which did not happen in the past. And the link between conventional, non-conventional, between conventional cyber information aspects at a scale and sophistication that is novel, and it's worth to study and to address. There's another aspect that is also linked and the testimony of this blending. For example, the type of operations that the so-called Islamic State, ISIL, is performing. ISIL is a terrorist organization, it's clear, but what it brings new is a kind of blending of the ruthlessness and the brutality of terrorist organizations with the resources and the scale that usually a nation state employs. And the fact that it's looking for some territorial control, and then it gains some own resources, be it from the Mosul bank capturing of a number of hundreds of millions of dollars, or from the clandestine extraction and sale of oil on a black market. And also the way it uses for propaganda modern free communication, social media, for example. And also the way it harnesses energies of so-called activists to generate disruptive cyber attacks, like the ones that France has witnessed after the Charlie Hebdo attacks earlier this year. So this is the picture that we're living. It's probably the most complex, dynamic, and I would say diverse picture that we have faced, at least in the last decades. We have to address all these components at the same time. So there's no issue of choice. When we look in geostrategic terms, NATO faces this arch crisis from its eastern neighborhood but then also towards the south. It has to address these aspects at the same time, so simultaneously, they're non-discretionary. And then all the other aspects that come from that could come from any geographic directions, like the threats and the menaces from cyberspace. How are we doing this? First and foremost, it's through recalibration and adaptation. I think to respond to the new requests of addressing collective defense in a new context, Head of Citizens and Government of Wales launched a so-called Readiness Action Plan, just to increase the readiness of the alliance in face of any threats, no matter from which direction they would come, east or south or north or whatever. We are blending the approach within this readiness concept, and also this whole concept of adaptation, with all the requirements that have to do with defense vis-a-vis threats coming from cyberspace. Also in Wales, last year, NATO has launched the enhanced NATO policy on cyber defense that had brought together some important conceptual elements. First, let me re-emphasize, the mandate of NATO in cyber defense is defense. It's not as wide as security or cyber crime, but it's not about cyber warfare. It's about increasing the resilience of NATO's and allies networks to be able to withstand attacks. And it's clearly that together we can be better informed, better equipped, and better able to respond than each single one of us. That policy also has sent a strong signal of recognition that international law applies in cyberspace, which is a message that NATO doesn't want this space to be ungoverned or lawless, or to not even to have it militarized. Although we see that there are adversaries that use cyber as weapons, which are aspects of militarization. But we think that through the support, not being in the driver's seat, but supporting developments at UN level, OEC, of norms, of confidence building measures, this would make us all safer. It also, on the other hand, states that cyber defense is part of NATO's core task of collective defense, which is another strong message that this aspect could not be decoupled, and allies would respond in such situations in solidarity and in unity. Just to give you a number of examples of how we want to address a comprehensive approach in this against this threat landscape. But we also want to do this not alone. Partnership remains an important dimension. It's the cooperative security dimension, which is still there in the strategic concept. Partnership with other international organizations. EU is the closest partner. It has been in operation. It has been on many areas. United Nations, OEC, Council of Europe. NATO has today a network of 40 partner nations, so there are more partners than allies, and this helps fostering links and addressing challenges together. And I would also want to make a point on the relationship with Russia, to be very clear. NATO is not seeking any confrontation with Russia and not seeking any isolation of Russia. Actually, there is I would say, a stubbornness to not to give up on an objective of a partnership, but in the current context, it is not anymore a short, medium or medium-short-term objective, because this can be only developed on a principle basis. So at the moment where Russia returns to the observance, the respect of international norms and commitment that it actually assumed as a sovereign nation, and actually respects the right also of other nations to take their sovereign decisions without promoting this idea of zones of influence or buffer zones and so on. I think these are concepts that belong to a different time, to a different century. So on this principle basis, yes, the idea is to be open to cooperation. Unfortunately, after the events last spring, the annexation of Crimea, legal annexation of Crimea, allies decided that practical cooperation with Russia would be suspended, and practically including military cooperation, including the one in the Science for Peace and Security program, with whom we actually have very interesting projects with Russia. And I, for one, was involved in some of them. But in that political context, the leaders of the alliance decided that this practical cooperation could not continue. We still have keep the political cooperation, the political dialogue open. There have been meetings. The Secretary General, there is a mission of Russia to NATO, an ambassador, and then a team. There are channels of communications also among the militaries, because we want to have these channels of communication. This was, it would be unthinkable not to have them. But to have meaningful advance in the relationship, it has to come back in the framework of the rules and norms that have been established in the modern, for the modern 21st century, and that actually have been established before, at the second half of the previous century. So I want to leave some time also for some questions and answers. It's clear that the international security landscape is challenging us on an increasing scale, and we can be able to respond efficiently as united allies and also in partnership with partners. And by the way, there's no geographical limit. There's no geographical limit in NATO's partnerships, because NATO's partnership networks include partners from Eastern Europe, from Middle East, from Asia Pacific, like Australia or Korea or Japan, including from Latin America. And in our operations in Afghanistan, we have partners like Colombia. So there's no geographical limit. And the point of these partnerships is no, let's say, pre-cooked or pre-enforced rules. The spirit should be that of cooperative security and strengthened security and peace across the globe. It should be a self-selection, so each partner can decide how much, how far, how fast it wants to go to NATO, on what subjects. So it's a variable geometry that is very much applied according to the interests of its partners. And I should end by making the point that NATO has been most successful in its more than 65 years of history by actually preventing conflict and wars. It was able to assure the security and stability, sovereignty, territorial integrity of its members while doing a lot of preparation, a lot of readiness, a lot of planning, a lot of diplomacy, because it's not just a military organization, it's a poly-military organization, in order to prevent major conflicts and confrontations. And this is the main objective also nowadays. This is why NATO has among its portfolio a division that is forward-looking, to scan the horizon, to address these emerging challenges, that has an instrument like the Science for Peace and Security program, which was actually the scope of my visit today, to promote science for peace and security in Bulgaria and in partnership with partners from the regions and others. It is about actually creating stability and peace and prosperity, not through confrontation, but through those means and tools that bring us closer together to understand each other, and hopefully bring us all together to this principled approach, rules-based approach that should define the international order and avoid us, slipping towards regional or more than regional destabilization. So with this, I would like to thank once again our hosts, the Atlantic Club of Bulgaria, Dr. Pasi, the Ministries of Education and Foreign Affairs and Defense of Bulgaria for making this whole dense day possible. I have to express my regrets of not being able to stay longer. I have to tell you, my initial plans actually were to stay a bit, stay the evening, and maybe take a short flight and visit also my folks in Romania, and only to go on Monday to work, but this is not possible because it's a time where work has to be done also over the weekend. So I hope I will find some better time to enjoy even more of the great hospitality and friendship of Bulgaria. Thank you very much.
And I thank you on behalf of our audience for this really interesting, intriguing presentation. What I've learned was that we are not just supporting isolated projects in science, but you are developing policy in science on how to use the science for security and defense. I also very well remember our numerous meetings in Washington when Romania and Bulgaria were applying for membership in NATO. Between 2001 and 2004, Ambassador Ducaru was one of the most impressive ambassadors, and this was a sort of a culmination for the time being of Romanian and Bulgarian cooperation vis-a-vis NATO. Имате думата за въпроси. Thank you for mentioning the successful project of the Atlantic Club with Science for Peace this morning at the University, Ambassador. Имате думата за въпроси. Виждам въпрос от Министерството на отбраната. Най-напред.
Ministry of Defense. Mr. Ducaru, thank you very much for your presentation. You've been talking about cybersecurity. You're responsible as Assistant Secretary General for cybersecurity as well. Also within my responsibilities, my personal responsibilities within the Ministry of Defense in Bulgaria. So naturally, I've been listening very carefully to what you have to say. And I have a small question regarding cyber defense. I would like to know your view of the development of relationships or partnerships between NATO and the industry in this domain. We've been talking about developing partnerships with our partners, but I would also like to hear about partnerships with the industry. Thank you very much.
Partnerships with the industry. Okay. Друг въпрос виждам. Заповядайте. Идентифицирайте се, моля.
My name is Slava Kimurjeva, and in the first place I would like to thank you for the interesting lecture, Mr. Ducaru. I have another question. Does NATO finance individual education projects? I mean, does NATO provide scholarship to the students who would like to learn a master's degree or PhD degree related to the international security? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Slava. And next to Mrs. Slava is Professor Milošev, who is a guru of Bulgarian genetics. Not only genetics, but he he also told me that the blue eye, the gene for the blue eyes emerged for the first time in Romania 10,000 years ago.
In Romania, it's true. 10,000 years ago. Well, my question is, you talk about cybersecurity, etc., but we are very concerned with the food of migration. And therefore, because NATO is responsible for the guarding of the borders, my question is, what is the politics of NATO about the food of migration in Europe? Because it could be key if some people from these which are coming in our countries are members of some terrorist organizations. So what is the politic? Is there something specific in the politics of NATO about this issue? And the continuation of this question is, do you know about some specific technologies which are working at the borders to prevent the influence of terroristic members? Thank you.
For example, it's very frequent in airports in Asia. When you enter the airport, not only Asia, but also in Asia, when you enter the airport, there is a thermal camera scanning you and suggesting that you were bringing some virus to the country, and you are immediately checked very seriously by the physicians. Заповядайте,
Hello, my name is Vladimir Tikhonov. Your Excellency, what are opportunities for participants in NATO programs for various scientists and craftsmen? Thank you.
Thank you. И мисля, че с това се изчерпах въпросите, които сега имаме. Не виждам други вдигнати ръце. You have the floor, Mr. Ambassador.
Well, thank you very much for the interesting question. First on NATO industry cyber partnership. As I mentioned, partnership in the cyber domain is key. Those who are involved in this sector, they have a saying: cyber defense is indeed a team sport. NATO develops partnership with other international organizations, and with the EU has a structured partnership with UN, OEC on ad hoc basis, but also with its partner nations on a case-by-case basis. With industry, we have been mandated since the Wales summit last year to develop a NATO industry cyber partnership, and this is already up and running for 1 year. What we have been able to achieve so far is quite a lot in terms of information exchange and different kind of information exchange. We're exchanging data from systems. NATO can have access to the big data that firms have through these exchanges, and there are some MOUs, memorandum of understanding between the NATO communication information agencies and a number of firms. There has been information exchange in terms of best practices in defending networks. Also through the invitation of industry representatives in the Cyber Defense Committee of NATO, so directly the body that shapes the policy of NATO. We have a format, there's an annual workshop which is done at classified level, so it's small participation, about 100 people with all the necessary clearances and so on. But there, both the nations, government agencies, plus representatives from industry with the right clearances bring together their experience in following the big campaigns in cyberspace, and their share experience of what they see with you. Maybe you've heard from the press of the snake campaign, the Sofia or the mini Duke and so on. So this is where they need to get together. So, and we're even open gateway and virtual gateway or platform on NATO's websites, where we want to address in the coming months and include what we call a malware information sharing platform between industry, where industry can share information on practical aspects that they see on malware with each other and with NATO. We also are advancing in terms of education and training with industry, and it's important because they can harness great minds. Also, our organizations are able to harness great minds, but it's great we have them together. Industry has participated for the first time in NATO cyber coalition exercise last year, and this year it will participate again on a bigger scale. The next level would be to cooperate more with industry on cyber defense innovation, and this is very useful on your hand. It's necessary, but it's also delicate because it is linked also with how do you do selection, how will this influence procurement program. So here we have to clear some of the delicate aspects, but it's clear that in cyber we cannot go through a normal process of getting the best solution like normal acquisition process. We need to get something very fast because a product, a cyber defense product, it's obsolete in 6 months, and the procurement process takes 3 years or more than you can imagine. We need to be, and this is part of our adaptation. It is part of what we call adapting to the new realities. There was another question on scholarships. Well, what we can offer under Science for Peace and Security is short-term training. We have so-called workshops or advanced study institutes. In workshops on a specific subject, scholars, scientists can come together and exchange information. They actually brought to speed to the, let's say, highest level of knowledge, of expertise on a specific subject, and they're extremely useful. Other projects have to do with training. For example, we do training for cyber specialists. We've done it for allied nations, for partner nations, or in partnership with allies and partners, but we don't have like big programs like master law scholarships and so on. So this is not the case. On migration, well, NATO is responsible with the collective defense of allies, with the territorial integrity, but in all honesty, in democratic nations, it's not the military that watches the borders. I think it's not a good idea to address migration with military means. I think where NATO is mostly involved is in addressing the sources of migration, not the consequences. Because here you can see that the EU and the UN are in the lead, and NATO is in support. Actually, all allied nations are supporting this consequences addressing. But the issue is addressing the sources, and the sources are terrorism, civil war, and so on. So for these, we have the so-called Defense Capacity Building Initiative of NATO for partners, where upon the request of partners or in conjunction with partners, NATO can develop projects to empower those partner nations to address the issue at the root themselves. One of the vehicles is the Science for Peace and Security program. We do, for example, training on counterterrorism with countries like Jordan, also on counter improvised explosives devices. We have, through Science for Peace and Security, established a crisis management center in Mauritania. A number of projects on chemical, biological, radiological decontamination. First, testing, but then also decontamination. And I think what we need, we have good expertise, we have good resources, good connectivity. We need more resources, scale, and actually to do this in a comprehensive approach with the other organizations. So this is now the focus. Do it in concert with others. And then I think on opportunities for scientists and then craftsmen, I think for scientists there are lots of opportunities, and usually they come with an idea. They can the scope of today's program was to show how easy in effect is to apply for the project under Science for Peace and Security. There is a website, you can see what the priorities are, you link your idea with the priorities, and then you see what the process is. And the experts from my division can help fine-tune the projects. And so depending on the idea or the domain of each scientist, there are many opportunities. I don't know in terms of craftsmanship, honestly. Maybe there could be a craftsmanship idea that could be implemented, but so far I don't have any recollection of this project. I hope I responded to all the questions.
Well, thank you very much, Ambassador Ducaru. I'm really happy to see that the Assistant Secretary General of NATO is coming to Bulgaria, not on the invitation of the Foreign Ministry, not on the invitation of the Defense Ministry, but on the invitation of the Ministry of Science and Education. This speaks that NATO has a bright future. I understand we are running out of time, and our colleagues from the ministry are very tense that we're breaking your schedule. Thank you very much for being with us, and I want to invite you for a bigger conference that we can do together with your team. Thank you very much.